Right to our top story, which is the mystery of Flight 370, the packed jetliner that simply vanished en route to Beijing. This situation is truly baffling. No distress call, no bad weather, no history of mechanical problems with this particular plane, and no sign yet of a crash other than some oil slicks in the waters off of Vietnam, which may or may not be related.
And this morning, there are only more questions. Did the pilots attempt a mid-air turnaround? And what does it mean that two of the passengers were traveling with stolen passports? We have team coverage this morning from China to Washington, D.C. And we start with ABC News senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas, who's covering the intriguing angle about those two passengers with the stolen passports. Pierre, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bianna. So many questions today that are tantalizing and frustrating, including the mystery of the stolen passports. Two men posing as an Italian and an Austrian apparently boarded Malaysian flight MH370. This morning, U.S. intelligence and the FBI wants to know who they are and why they might have been on board. Sources tell ABC News the story behind the two men is suspicious and could be critical. Were they drug smugglers? Were they terrorists, sources asked, or none of the above?
On the issue of the passports, I'm in touch with the international intelligence agencies. At the same time, our own intelligence has been activated.
Authorities were blunt. Given the lack of evidence, terrorism cannot be ruled in or out.
We are looking at all possibilities.
Malaysian authorities say they've identified surveillance video from security cameras at the airport that they will use to identify passengers aboard the flight. Those images will be compared to photographs of terrorism and criminal suspects from around the globe. The Austrian Foreign Ministry told ABC News that one of its citizens supposedly on the flight was, quote, safe and sound in Austria. The only Austrian listed on the manifest is Christian Kozel. Italian authorities say none of their citizens were on board either. The parents of Luigi Moraldi told Italian TV their son had called them to say he was okay, despite the fact his name was on the flight manifest. Both passports were apparently stolen in Thailand. While the U.S. government has not discovered any evidence of terrorism, the FBI and intelligence agencies are reviewing all the names on the flight manifest and will compare them to relevant criminal and terrorism databases. Malaysian officials say in addition to the two passengers with stolen passports, at least two other passengers are drawing scrutiny, but they did not say why. The FBI is planning to deploy forensic investigators to assist in the case, but a lot of work is already underway. Bianna?
And Pierre, more about these two passengers with the stolen passports. How in this post-9/11 world were they able to get on that plane? Is there a global central database where stolen passports are reported and can be checked on before passengers board?
That's true, there is. The question is whether both passports were entered into the international database, and did the Malaysian officials bother to check? Sources tell me the standards vary from airport to airport internationally.
Even more baffling, one of these passports was reported stolen 2 years ago.
That's right.
All right. All right, thanks to Pierre. Well, we're going to turn now to the complicated and difficult task of finding the cause of the crash, starting with recovering the all-important black boxes on board. ABC's David Curley looks at the flight's timeline for clues. And David, we're learning that this plane may have turned around just before it disappeared. What could that indicate?
Bianna, it's really hard to know. Were they really trying to turn around, or were they just making a turn as part of the route? This came out of the Transport Ministry in Malaysia. We've been getting a lot of conflicting information over the last couple of days. Really here, the key are the black boxes and when we can find them and the secrets that they contain. As you heard already, the search is on again for those boxes, but this morning we really have more questions than answers.
This is the actual 777 that is missing, an aircraft with few maintenance issues, but it disappeared a little more than 36 hours ago. Here's what we do know. Malaysia Airlines 370, the red-eye to Beijing, took off on its 6-hour flight at 12:41 a.m. 40 minutes later, it apparently flew out of the radar coverage area. 10 minutes later, the airline says the crew reported their position, the last time they were heard from. How much longer they were in the air or what direction they were headed is unclear, but this morning officials say they're investigating the possibility that the plane tried an air turnback, a literal turnaround back to the airport at Kuala Lumpur. We do know that the pilot, 53-year-old Zahari Shah, was experienced with the airline for more than 30 years. But there is so much we do not know. What was happening in the final moments? Those black boxes will likely tell us. They are now presumably at the bottom of the South China Sea. Locator beacons pinging for a month or so.
At this particular place, it's a little over 600 feet, and that means that they will be able to find it. That's not a terrible depth of thousands of feet or a rough bottom that would make a major problem out of this.
The black boxes are so critical. In another high-profile disappearance, Air France 447, the boxes were finally retrieved from the bottom of the Atlantic, providing the answers to why that jet fell out of the sky. Some are now asking whether all the data from these jets should actually be beamed back to land rather than stored on those black boxes. This morning, those search and rescue crews are looking for wreckage so they can start listening for the locator pings from those all-important recorders.
The Americans want some answers as well. The NTSB, as well as officials from Boeing, have come together, poised as a team, ready to fly to Asia and assist in this investigation. They want to see those black boxes too, Dan.
David, thank you. Let's get more now on this mystery from ABC News aviation consultant Colonel Stephen Ganyard, who's in Washington this morning. Colonel, good morning to you. Under what circumstances could you imagine the pilots turning a plane around mid-flight?
Dan, I think there are all sorts of reasons that they would turn around. Perhaps something went wrong on the airplane. They wanted to turn around maybe for a maintenance issue. It's not unusual for an airplane to turn around. If there's a question about the safety of the airplane will be turned around and sent back to its original destination. My question is this a we think they turned it around, or maybe, or we have some definitive clues? I'm still quite skeptical of this.
Yet another one of the many unanswered questions surrounding this incident. David Curley raised something in his piece that I want to ask you about. In this day and age when we have so much technology at our disposal, why are the black boxes not transmitting information directly to land rather than us having to go to the bottom of the ocean to retrieve them every time?
It's a legitimate question, and that was actually raised after the Air France crash off the coast of Brazil. Why not just transmit some of this data through satellite links and be able to, so that we always have track of where these aircraft are and the health of the aircraft at the time? So that's an initiative that's sort of moving forward. But up to this point, it's been a question of technology, having enough satellites in the right place, paying the cost of having this data transmitted. So it's a cost-benefit analysis, but I think that you'll see a real impetus to change the way business is done transoceanically.
And Colonel Ganyard, we really appreciate your analysis on this Sunday morning. Thank you very much.